Let me ask you something. Do you really need a huge, heavy, rugged SUV anymore? Because for years, we have been told that if you want space, comfort, reliability, and the ability to escape the city on a weekend, you need something big, something tough, something that looks like it could survive the apocalypse.
Oh my God.
But what if you could have the space, the technology, and the practicality, and even some adventure capability without driving something that feels like a truck? That's where the Honda CR-V comes in. And this is the 2026 Honda CR-V. Today we are going to find out whether Honda has created the smarter SUV or whether this is simply another comfortable crossover trying to look adventurous. We are going to look at the exterior, the interior, the technology, the engine, and hybrid system, safety, practicality, and yes, we are going to talk about the tailsport hybrid. Because if Honda is telling us this CR-V is ready for adventure, I want to know, how adventurous are we actually talking? I'm Andrew, and this is Andrew Smart Car Reviews. Let's get into it. Now, let's start where every car review usually starts, the outside. And honestly, I think Honda has taken a very interesting approach with the CR-V. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't have the aggressive styling of some of its competitors. Instead, it looks mature, it looks clean, and surprisingly confident. The front end immediately gives you that impression. The headlights are slim, the grille is relatively restrained, and the overall design feels much more grown up than some previous generations. And I think that's intentional. Honda isn't necessarily trying to make the SR-V look like a sports car. It's trying to make it look like something you could drive for the next 5, maybe even 10 years, without looking back at old photos and wondering, what was I thinking? Okay? That's actually an underrated quality. But then Honda gives us something a little more interesting, the tailsport hybrid. And this is where the CR-V starts putting on its hiking boots. Okay? Honda gives the tailsport hybrid a more rugged appearance, available all-wheel drive, all-terrain tires, and drive mode system designed to give it greater confidence. And visually, I think it works. It doesn't suddenly turn the CR-V into a Land Cruiser. Let's not get carried away. But it does give the vehicle a more adventurous personality. And that's going to be an important theme throughout this review. Because the question isn't, can the CR-V go off-road? Of course, it can handle some rougher surfaces. The better question is, how far can you push it before you realize this is still a family crossover? And we're going to come back to that. Now, let's get inside, because this is where I think the CR-V starts making a very strong argument for itself. Honda didn't design this cabin simply to impress you for the first 5 minutes. It was designed to make sense. The dashboard is clean, the controls are logically arranged, and there's a feeling that Honda has resisted the temptation to put a giant touchscreen everywhere just because it can. And personally, I like that, because sometimes I don't want to open a menu on a touchscreen just to change the temperature. I want a button. Of course, I'm old-fashioned like that. I enjoy it. The available technology is where things become more interesting. Depending on the trim and market, the 2026 CR-V can offer features such as wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, digital instrumentation, and Google built-in selected version. And this is exactly where I need to remind you, this is a global review. Honda doesn't sell exactly the same SR-V everywhere. Trim names, engines, equipments, and technology can vary from one market to another. So don't watch this video and assume that every feature you see here is automatically available at your local Honda dealer. Always check the specification for your market. And if you're enjoying this review so far, do me a quick favor, hit that subscribe button. This is Andrew Smart Car Reviews, and we are not just looking at one brand. We are going around the world looking at SUVs, sedans, pickups, hybrids, and all types of cars, including the EVs and everything interesting in between. So please kindly subscribe because there's a lot more coming. Now, let's talk about the thing that makes this SRV particularly interesting, the powertrain. Depending on the market and trim, the 2026 CRV can be equipped with either a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder or Honda's 2-motor hybrid system. And this is where things get interesting because the numbers don't tell the whole story. The 1.5-liter turbo produces around 190 horsepower and currently in the US specification. But the hybrid system produces 204 horsepower on total system output. And here's the important part. A hybrid isn't simply a petrol engine with a battery attached to it. There's a lot more going on. When you're accelerating, the electric motor can provide immediate assistance. When you're slowing down, the system can recover some of that energy through regenerative braking. And when you're cruising, the system can intelligently manage the petrol engine and electric motors to improve efficiency. So instead of simply asking how much horsepower does it have, the better question becomes how does Honda deliver that power? And that's where the hybrid starts making sense. Think of it this way. The petrol engine is the person doing the heavy lifting. The electric motor is the friend who suddenly shows up and says, "Don't worry, I've got this." Okay? That's basically the hybrid system. And in city driving, that's where hybrid can really shine. Or should I rather say the hybrids really shine. You are constantly accelerating, slowing down, stopping, starting again. And every time you slow down, the system has an opportunity to recover energy. That's something a conventional petrol SUV simply can't do in the same way. On the highway, the experience changes. You're cruising at a constant speed. There's less opportunity for regenerative braking, and the petrol engine becomes more important. But the CRV's hybrid system is designed to balance these different situations intelligently. And that's ultimately what makes the hybrid attractive. Not just the power, but also the efficiency. Now, let's talk about something that I think every family SUV should take seriously. Safety. Honda calls it suite of driver's assistant technology, Honda Sensing. And depending on the trim and market, you can get system designed to help with forward collision detection, collision mitigation braking, lane departure warnings, lane keeping assistance, adaptive cruise control, traffic sign recognition, blind spot monitoring, and cross traffic monitoring. But here's something important. These systems aren't there to turn the CRV into a self-driving car. They are there to assist you. The driver is still responsible. Now, this is probably the most controversial part of this review, the tail sport hybrid. Honda has given the CRV a more adventurous identity, but let's establish something right now. This isn't a Land Cruiser, it's not a Fortuner, and it isn't pretending to be either of those. The tail sport is designed to give you more confidence when conditions become difficult, not necessarily to turn you into an extreme off-road driver. And honestly, that's probably exactly how most owners will use it. A dirt road here, a gravel road there, a camping trip, you see, all those, a muddy driveway, maybe a trail that gets a little more interesting than expected. That's where this vehicle makes sense. Because, let's be honest, most people who buy an adventure-based SUV aren't spending every weekend climbing mountains. Some of us consider the supermarket parking lots, extreme terrain. No, we don't do that. Especially on Saturday afternoon. But the CRV doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are some serious competitors, the Toyota RAV4, the Hyundai Tucson, and the Kia Sportage. And depending on your market, the Mazda CX-5 and several other compact SUV. And this is where the decision becomes interesting. If you want maximum ruggedness, you might look elsewhere. If you want a highly comfortable everyday family SUV, this CRV becomes extremely compelling. If fuel efficiency is your priority, the hybrid deserves a serious consideration. And if technology is important, the higher trims bring more impressive equipment. So the CR-V isn't necessarily trying to beat every competitor at everything. It's trying to create a balanced package, and that's probably its greatest strength. And if you have made it this far, you are officially part of the Andrew Smart Car Reviews crew. So if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, would you choose the CR-V over the RAV4, or would you rather betray the CR-V? I genuinely want to know what you think. So, looking at the design, the interior, the technology, and the hybrid system, the safety, the practicality, and that tail sport personality, here is my question. Is the 2026 Honda CR-V actually a smart buy? And honestly, I think it comes down to what you need. If you want a comfortable, efficient, practical, family-friendly SUV, the SR-V makes a very strong case. But also, on the other hand, if you're looking for extreme off-road capability, then probably it isn't your vehicle. But that's okay, because the SR-V isn't trying to be everything. It's trying to be the SUV that fits into your life without making everyday driving feel like work. And that brings us to the final question. Would I recommend the 2026 Honda CR-V? Yes, but with one important condition. Choose the version that actually matches your lifestyle. If you spend most of your time in the city, a hybrid SR-V could make a lot of sense. If you regularly travel long distances, again, the hybrid deserves serious consideration. If you're looking for more adventure, the tail sport hybrid becomes the interesting option. But if you're expecting this thing to replace a Land Cruiser on an extreme off-road trail, the real strength of the SR-V is balance. It is comfortable, it's practical, it's technologically advanced, it's efficient, and it's designed to make everyday life easier. And sometimes that's exactly what a great SUV should do. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you take the 2026 Honda CR-V over the Toyota RAV4, or would you spend your money somewhere else? Tell me your choice in the comments, and more importantly, tell me why. I want to know. Thank you for watching another episode of Andrew's Smart Car Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, hit that like button down there, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification so you don't miss the next episode. I'm Andrew. Drive safely, and I'll see you in the next review. Bye-bye.